Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Okay, so I've got something to say. Today, I'm very excited. I have a very special guest with me. It's a crazy story on how I met her. But my good friend, Kathleen White, she is also somebody who's known in media world, so to speak. She and her husband have YouTube channels, and they've been recording their journey on faith and what they've been going through. And so today I would like to just introduce her and say hello.
Well,
So how are you?
I am good. How are you? I'm so excited to be here, like beyond excited that you would even have me and even care what I have to say.
Oh my gosh, you're so funny.
For those who don't know, I have a family of five, three little ones, 9, 4, and 2, and I'm married to my high school sweetheart for, I think we're celebrating 11 years. Yeah, 11
That's
years.
rad.
And let's see, last July, we decided that we were going to leave in an RV and travel the US full time. Like, just crazy. It didn't happen overnight, obviously. We're talking about faith, so it was a huge leap of faith. We planned for a good, like a long time, just to make sure we were walking in faith, and just every step that we took was in the right direction. Plans never go as you think they're going to go, because God always has better plans for you. But we just stopped traveling. We came back in January. And then my husband got a job right before just all of the craziness happened. And it's just amazing being able to see how God works, and when you're walking in faith, even when you don't quite understand it, how he works. So that's just a little bit about me. I'm just so honored to be here.
I'm so excited. I've been waiting for this, and I was just like, well, first of all, so I'll just give a really quick background on how we even met, which is just crazy because it was through a whole nother family and a family, the Loftus, where I just felt like, and you and I discussed this before, there was something that she said in a video, and the way she said it, it just grabbed my heart, where I was like, oh, I need to know her. Mm-hmm. And it just so happened to work out that one of the days after Reed's stunt and all these different things of our life, that they were in town. And so we had planned very excitedly to go and meet up. And that's how we met you guys. And it's just so crazy that you live in the same city as us. Yes. And then our husbands both being veterans and just all these things. And then crazy connection even further down when we were talking a couple of weeks ago and finding out that one of the people that I work with, one of my partners, was actually your first realtor. Yes. And so I think that's so funny. Like, it's just one of those affirmations or confirmations of we're supposed to know each other. Like, yes, we're supposed to interact with each other. And what's even more funny that I think I just shared with you the other day, and so I was having to backtrack and do dates. So when you guys were getting ready to go back out on the road, it was December before Christmas, right?
Yeah,
so that was when I saw you guys in Walmart.
Yes.
And you were my third confirmation to do the podcast. And it was only our second time ever seeing each other, like in person. And it was just one of those like, okay, God, if you're going to speak through them to say yes, then okay, I've really got to do it. Because it had been like at least 6 weeks that it was already spinning around, where I was like, you couldn't possibly mean me. Like, and this, I don't even know, podcast, like who does that? So
I love that he constantly uses just people who either don't believe that they can do it, don't think that they're enough, or are constantly asking like, well, why me? Like, why did you choose me? But it's just so awesome, just in the middle of Walmart, just talking about podcasts, and I was like, yes, you need to do it.
It's so crazy, but yeah, totally. So one of the things a lot of people, and so I'm sure because we are definitely different personality types, you might feel differently, but faith to me, like anything and everyone that I've encountered with it, they either have it down, like they understand it, or it's like a completely unattainable concept for them, where they're just like, no. And it's probably because it's such a difficult thing, because it's an act of obedience versus the physical, tangible. For me, because of the way I was raised, faith actually comes easy. It's one of my giftings, and also just my surviving of certain things. So I have to remember that when I talk to different people, that not everybody got it the same way as me or has it the same way as me. But for me, it's literally just one of those where I'm like, I just trust God. I just do. It's not necessarily a feeling. Sometimes it is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like the same as I know that my name is Connie.
Right. You just know. Yeah.
Right. And so let me ask you, when you are like having to make a decision or step out in faith, I'm going to pull up my notes really quick so I don't mess up my questions. But what is it? How do you use faith in practical ways? What is it that you do that's just a practical act, walking out in it every day?
So first, faith definitely requires courage. Like it's not easy. It's not an easy thing to have, especially when you can't see what's ahead, because faith is belief in things that you cannot see.
Right.
Just knowing and trusting, and just clinging to God's plans for your life, and regardless of what happens or what comes next. But you have to be willing to let God take control, completely turn your world upside down, and then start over again in like the most beautiful way. It's not always easy. But for me, it's just constantly just having like open hands and just asking, okay, what do you want me to do next? Like I just take it day by day. And so, of course, you can make a plan. You can plan all day long. And it's good because that helps you go towards something that you feel called to. And then so the whole way, it's just like this, like what, hands open, like what do you want me to do next? And just constantly trying to listen to that next cue and next, like, confirmation from God in the direction that you need to go.
For me, like, I know obviously, like I was stating, everybody's not the same as me, but for me, it's one of those move in a direction and allow him to move me. Yes. Like it's not, I can't sit still and just be like, well, I'm going to wait for God to drop that sign on the front door and be like, here, honey, this is what's next. And so how do you walk in faith and just know, walking with your hands open, what it is that you look for when you feel like a nudging?
So for me, I was not close to the Lord. I had fallen like just really far from God, probably in the early years of my marriage, and so we had gotten to a really hard place in our marriage, and it was just not good. And I just remember just sitting in a room and just feeling the lowest I had ever felt in my life. And I was just asking God, like, I was just crying out to him, like, something's got to change. I cannot live like this. And just like, I'm sorry for straying for so long. And I know you love me, and I know this is not who I am. And so I decided that moment, because I was saved at a really young age, like at 5. Right. And at 5 years old, it's really hard to understand everything.
Yes.
So you go through a whole life of knowing you're saved, but not quite understanding how to have that relationship with God.
Right.
So that day, the lowest point, sitting in our one of the rooms in our old house, I just recommitted my life to God. And ever since that moment, like, he brings you through trials and struggles. No, life is not always going to be perfect, but he has constantly showed, like, time and time again, that he will, whatever he has for us and whatever he brings us through, there's a reason for that, whether it's building character, whether it's just showing us that we can trust him because his plans are so much bigger than ours. It is just like, I've just experienced it so many times, and it may not always be easy, but it is just worth it every time. Right. And like you said, you're confirmation of 3. That's kind of what you look for. And for me, it's just like when doors open, or just things just happen in ways that you couldn't do on your own. Like, you just know that's God. Like, there's times where me and my husband, something will happen and we'll look at each other and be like, yeah, that's God. Like, because some things there's no explanation for it besides that.
Right. So faith is not a feeling, right? It's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that being said, what does it feel like to know that you're standing in faith, that you're walking in faith? Like, is there sometimes, we can have, and I know every situation is not going to be the same, but sometimes we can have like just that like gut check almost. Sometimes it'll feel like a punch to the gut. And then sometimes it's just that like, no, I don't know. I'm just getting a bad feeling about it. And so it's funny because they both can be used, but like, what is it that you look for? And the reason I'm asking this, just to reel it back really quick, is kind of like, because there are so many people, especially for new believers, but I know for a fact for people that have been in church and in relationship for a long time, but they struggle with faith. They don't understand it because it's hard. It is very hard to go off of the things that you cannot see. I mean, it's so much that whole thing of, do you trust me?
Yeah.
And so I want to, I don't know how to say this, not dumb it down, but I want to break it down into a thing that would maybe break into somebody's life, bring freedom to somebody where they're really struggling and just being like, what's wrong with me? Why don't I? Where maybe they can understand it's because they've been looking at it different, or they've been looking at it wrong, for lack of a better word. And so I just really want to simplify it in the sense of feelings, not feelings, choices, and what that really is for each person. Granted, it's going to be different for you and me, similar at times, but different in our daily walks. And so I just really want to make a tangible understanding to the best of our ability.
So I would just say, pray. If there is anything that I can tell you when it comes to faith, is pray. There's really, like, you can, obviously you want to like be reading the Bible and in scripture, because he will speak to you through that too, but praying, finding some time during the day, anytime, like in the shower, whenever you have just quiet time, in the bathroom, whatever it is, like, pray. And I promise you, if you just ask him to either bring you peace about something, or like decision making, or show me the way to go, he will guide your steps every time. And it may not make any sense, but prayer, that is my like just actionable step, I guess. And when you are like making the right choice, it does, like you said, you just feel good about it. And I guess that's like can go with, how do you know, like the feeling of faith, it feels good. when you're making a wrong decision, you know that like, okay, this probably isn't what I need to be doing. And so just prayer, that's all.
It's kind of that peace that surpasses all understanding, in a sense, where it's like, I don't know, I just feel like this is good.
Yes.
I also am super grateful that he judges us by the heart.
Yes.
So even when we're like, I think I'm supposed to do this, and we start going in that direction, even if it's not necessarily where he was pulling us, he has this ability to still work it all out. And even in the, as you're moving, and he'll direct your path, like to the right or to the left, even if you are traveling in the wrong direction, he just, because he judges us by the heart, it's different in how he can kind of just, I don't know, steer you. And I think it's also good, like for the people that just don't know or don't understand it, they've probably been walking in faith and don't realize it, because they disqualify because they're expecting something bigger than it is. And I would hate to say that in a sense, because faith is so huge. It's the essence of who we are, actually, especially in relationship with Christ. But they make it bigger in them. Like, I don't know, like fireworks are supposed to go off in the sky or something, and they're always second guessing it. And so I think realizing that just acting in obedience of God, I believe this is what you're calling me to do. And if I'm going the wrong way, then, change directions. And I think that speaks actually to your story recently on how you guys ended up coming back home, if you want to share really quick.
So funny, because I was just thinking about that, because you're talking about redirecting and hearts and all of this stuff. And if I can tell you about redirecting, if anyone has been through redirection, it's us. Because our whole journey was just even when we first started, we really didn't have any reservations. We were just kind of going. We knew kind of the direction we wanted to go. And then we would just kind of plan one after the other. And I think that really is a super good example of just how to live it out in daily life, just taking it one step at a time.
Right.
And so we left in July, and we traveled all summer long, and we came back in September. And then we went to New Mexico, came back again. And then I think that was Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
We left again right before Christmas.
That was when we met.
Yeah. Yes. And then came back in January, because we were kind of at this crossroads. We had gotten to Texas, and we were kind of okay, we really want to head to Florida because we have family there. And, it would just be a really cool way, because usually when we go, we're only there for a couple of days, and then we have to come back. So we were we could spend so much time there, see all our family, or we were either going to head back home. And so we were just praying and praying and praying. And then my husband, right before we were about to make this decision, gets an email for an interview back in Phoenix, where we live. And so we were I was I don't want to go. I don't want to go back. I want to keep going. This is awesome. And I don't want to stop. But I was okay, this has to be something, because you don't just get interviews out of the blue.
Right.
I don't know. You might, but I don't know. So, so we're okay, let's see what comes of this. And we came back the end of January. He interviewed, I believe it was the first week in February, but he didn't start working until March. And then that was right before everything happened. And had we kept going to Florida, the state parks were closed. Basically the whole state was shut down for a little while, and we wouldn't have had anywhere to stay. And then we would have, of course, had to turn around, find our way back and all that. But it just goes to show if you just listen and you obey, God will protect and watch over you, and he will show you the way to go. And speaking of heart, our whole route, I didn't plan this, obviously, because I don't plan very well, was in the shape of a heart. And I was just
that's so crazy to me.
Okay. Yeah. It was just so cool.
Yeah. That part is so crazy to me, the story of the heart of you and even your husband, neither of you really were at a place of where you wanted to come back and stop, because you were loving your life. And what's so funny, not in a ha-ha, but funny is, and I'll let you talk about that in a minute as well, but that the RV lifestyle and you guys being out together as a family, you do know that was something that God called you guys to do, and just placed the desire and worked that whole thing out as well. And so then all of a sudden now you're at this place of, no, we don't want to stop, but things are happening. And luckily you have the heart of obedience, even when you don't want to, where you've got to look at stuff and you go, well, this is what we want to do. You could have hung up on God instantly as soon as you saw the email. No, we're Florida bound. But because of the relationship you have, and because he's never let you down yet, you guys had to say, okay, God, is there something in this? And it was a protection in essence that you now can see in hindsight, which is because we all are dealing with home and place orders because of the fabulous coronavirus, which is why you and I live so close to each other, but we're talking through a screen.
Exactly.
And so back to the start of that though, tell me just again about the whole idea of what was happening in the family and in the marriage and all of that stuff. I know Joe was working a lot, but this whole idea of, for the family, we think we're supposed to do this. Go ahead and tell that.
So yeah, so like, why did we even decide to do this crazy thing? And like, why? Why would you do that, Kathleen? I don't know. So before like I said, we've been married 11 years this June, and our whole entire marriage, Joseph has worked some type of shift work. So it was never like a normal 9 to 5, right? So it was either like at night or overnight or just something crazy. It was just never, your husband wakes up, goes to work in the morning, comes home, sees the kids and all that. It was never like that. So after our first kid and then second kid and then third kid, of just trying to juggle all of these things and basically just single parenting it up, basically our whole marriage, because even when he was in the military, he was deployed a lot. And so I struggled a lot after having my third kid. And I was just like, and Joseph sat down one day and he was like, I don't know how to help you. And it was just this breaking point of, well, what, like, something has to change. What can we do, Lord? Like, this is not healthy. Like, we cannot, just like before when I was sitting on the floor of a room in our house, just like, something needs to change. And so my husband, I think, had just gotten a truck. I think that was when he had the F-150. And so he was looking, you know how guys research, they love truck parts and all this stuff. So he was looking up WeatherTech floor mats to protect the floors from kids. So we came across this channel, and they were RVers. And of course, we watched the WeatherTech floor mat review, but we just kind of like went down the rabbit hole of RVing and like, oh my goodness, there's another family who does this and aren't crazy. And so then that led me to all these other RV channels and then the Loftus channel. And I remember like another confirmation was I was sitting in the parent pickup line back before we started homeschooling. And I was just like, worn out from just life. And I watched one of her videos, the Lofts videos, and it was their downsizing video before they took, like, they vlogged their process before they took off on the road. And it just spoke to me. And so I'm just sitting in the parent pickup line, just tears. And I know I'm like going to have to explain to Sophia, my daughter, like, why are you crying? And so I just told her, I was like, I think I know what we have to do. And so, because she was talking about how it seemed crazy, but they just were not thriving as a family. And just they knew they needed this change, but it was so hard to watch all their, like, the clothes, the kid clothes and all this stuff. Like, it was a hard process. And I was like, okay, I know it's going to be hard, but we need this as a family. And so we just kind of started praying about it. And then we went on our first RV trip. Mind you, none of us had ever been tent camping or any kind of camping. And so we went on our first RV trip in November of 2018. And it was just happiness. Like, we were just happy and laughing, and it was just awesome. And so we kind of were both like, we have to make this happen. I don't know how.
Let me interrupt you really quick in that. So anybody that hears this or is watching that has ever been camping of any kind, even as like glamping, so to speak, will tell you, especially like for a newbie, and you chose kind of, well, cold weather for us if you're from Arizona, and a holiday. Yeah, and that you guys just had this great time. For me, listening to the story when you guys were talking, you and Joseph were talking on your guys' channel about it, I literally just started crying. I think that was kind of the part where I started crying, because I was like, there's no other way to confirm you're not crazy than for something that's not supposed to be stress-free, as I'm sure you now know because you did do it full time.
Yeah.
Trip is a journey. Yeah. And so the fact that it was smooth and good and everybody was happy, I think just goes to show again that when we lean into God, like really lean into him on something and let him say yay or nay, when we're really seeking his counsel and advice on something, that he will do that. It's that, again, peace that surpasses. And so when you guys were talking that story, I was like so excited for you guys and totally jealous, but in a good way, because I'm like, I want to go. I thought that was super rad as well. Just that confirmation of, yep, this is what we're supposed to do.
Yes, and it's like, we didn't know what we're doing. We had no idea. We didn't even have everything hooked up the right way. Like we didn't have an oven. I cooked everything before we left because I wasn't sure how any of that was going to work. We just did not understand how any of that worked, but we had the best time. And that's just like an example of God will use you in the most unexpected ways.
Yeah.
Just so crazy.
But I'm sure that when you guys finally like had to look at it, because you guys had also just built a beautiful home.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, you had just built a beautiful home, and I want to say, if I'm thinking of time frames kind of correctly, that you had just started your own small business at the time, also trying to get that launched.
Yep.
And you also had a secondary small business, which was photography. Mm-hmm. And so you had all of the things and reasons, plus Joseph had a really good job. So you had all the things and reasons to stay planted.
Absolutely.
And then you do the whole thing of publicly like declaring, we're going on the road full time. I know that you probably did not have everybody looking at you going, oh yeah, you should do that. No. So how do you stay when you're getting, not necessarily negative, because I don't want to make anybody sound like a villain that isn't, but like, so how do you stay walking in what you know that God's called you to do when you've got people maybe like just those fiery darts of doubt type of thing? How do you do that?
So the main thing, people were just so confused, I think is what it was. And they were just like, how are you going to shower? Where are you going to eat? How are you going to cook food? Like, where are you sleeping? Is there doors on your RV? Do you have a room? Like, people were just trying to comprehend it all.
Right.
Because I guess at the time it wasn't as popular as maybe it is now, because so many people I think are realizing and understanding how precious time is. And so that was like our main thing. People were just really confused. And we were just, at first we listed our home for sale. We were like, okay, if we're going to do this, we're going to jump all in and we're going to just sell it all. And so we listed it for sale, and I think it sat for maybe a month or two. And so we were kind of like, okay, obviously we're not supposed to sell our house. We did sell most of our stuff. Like we have like a little sliver of my mom's garage, and that's it. Like we don't have a storage unit or anything. And so then we were like, okay, we'll list it for rent. Joseph didn't want to do that. He was like, if we rent it, I'm not going to want to move back in it again and all this stuff. So but we did. We got an application just out of the blue. And again, not out of the blue. It was a total God thing of somebody coming from out of state. They hadn't even come to see the house yet. And so they are currently renting. But that was one thing people were like, you're going to sell your dream home and all of this stuff. And it seemed crazy. But I think for us, we just looked beyond the crazy and just tried to understand that we might not see it yet, but there's a bigger purpose to this whole thing. And it may not make sense, but time and time again, he shows like what he's doing behind the scenes, slowly but surely.
Well, and what's really also very cool, if you dissect it a whole lot, is I remember in one of the episodes that you guys just recently did, Joseph was talking about he was only getting to be a parent essentially on Sundays after church. So he was really missing out on helping with the kiddos. But anyways, I think like you took the kids out of school, Sophia, you started homeschooling, like doing homeschooling, and look at us now, you know, like, so this is like, yeah, I can do this. This is what you've already been doing. But also what's super rad is, I don't know the number. I did look at views of a couple of things last night on your guys' channel, but I think of the influence that you guys have been able to have had you not gone into this crazy world of full-time RVing and chosen to record yourselves and make a channel and all this other stuff. You guys have never been once shy about, in fact, it's in your title, Faith Bound Travel. You've never once hidden it or been shy about your relationship with Christ and who you are and why you're doing things. And I just think that it is such a testament also in when we trust and obey and lean into the ability that you guys have had across the country to just spread the word and live a life of faith, and the influence of how far that goes and the continuation of how that will keep on going, because clearly your guys' story is not over. And for protection, I think he brought you back to Arizona just because of what was happening with the virus and all of the other stuff. And obviously he's got some bigger and different change of plans because you came home and he's changed up, vehicles and stuff like that. So he's clearly taking you to another level again. But I just think that's the whole preparation of that. Had you not said, okay, like this is crazy, but okay, all from a video, like a WeatherTech video. I'm like, well, yeah. And all of that stuff, the falling after wouldn't be here. And what would you guys be doing? Would you still be doing the mundane, the monotonous parenting all by yourself? Joe not feeling like he's getting to be an active part in his kid's life, you feeling like you're carrying it all, the whole thing of where those are the things that Satan loves to use to just beat the crap out of us and bring division and separation and make you question God, make you question your spouse, make you question your decisions and all that stuff. And when we have that open hand position and say, like, Lord, we need a change, and you fully surrender it to him, how he can maneuver and say, okay, you just gave me a door that I can walk through, Kathleen, here I come. Right. And I just think that's so rad.
And when we were trying to come up with a name, like, what do we want to be called? And I'm the most indecisive person ever. So I was like, I don't know, this is going to take me 5 years just to figure out what I want to name it. And so one day we came home from Bible group and Joseph was like, I got it. I'm like, okay, what is it? And he was like, Faith Bound Travel. And I was like, that is actually perfect. But then, you start thinking about it and you're like, well, if we put ourselves publicly out there and talk about Jesus, like, more than maybe some people are comfortable with, or a reason why we travel maybe is different. However, you will meet a lot of our viewers on the road who are believers. And I think that's just because this giant leap of faith to do something like this, it's kind of like you got to have that some type of faith. But yeah, so we were like, okay, I know we're probably going to be like under attack, like you said, more than usual, and we have been, but we have met, like, our community is small and I love it like that. Like, I just love it. And we've been able to meet some of the most incredible people, and just like, they've poured into us, we've poured into them, and our kids get along, and it has just been like amazing. And I'm just, every day I'm thankful for that and for the community we've built, and just again, I like that it's small. But as we do get bigger, while it makes me nervous, it also makes me super excited that we will have the opportunity to talk about Jesus in a bigger platform. Like, maybe this is why he's given us this to use.
Well, and what is incredibly incredible and crazy is not the same episode, but the same verbiage that she uses and just how she speaks, because she does have a heart that totally loves Jesus. And it just emulates in all that she says and does. The fact that both of us had this commonality of especially Lane, how she speaks, and all that stuff, that it sucked us in, not in a bad way, but in a good way, sucked us in. And it's that influence of where you're like, gosh, I want to know her. Like you just know you're supposed to know her,
Mhm.
and just and I don't know how to explain it. And then the idea of crossing your path, where I had already had it. I didn't know you guys had a YouTube channel, by the way, at the time. Um, but I had already had it spoken to me um, a couple weeks earlier, where I just felt like God was really pressing me on doing a podcast. And I was like, huh?
What?
I don't even know how to do a podcast. And I thought only famous people did them. I literally thought you had to have like a crew, like production crew. And so anyways, there was this whole struggle and everything with me, and there has been. And then, so like I said earlier, that you were the third confirmation for me. And then I found out about your guys' channel. And of course, with you guys getting ready to go back out onto the road, I was like, well, I need to see what's up with them and catch up on all of the stuff. But it was that whole thing of just your willingness to speak about your life and share your life, be totally vulnerable in the whole thing, but also just be completely real, where I was like, okay. And there was this comfort in the faith part for me, where I'm like, Lord, you've placed in front of me people that are already to a level, some, you know, it's not podcast, but YouTube, both of you guys and your channels and all that stuff, a level of being vulnerable and putting it out there and just being obedient to a calling that you know that God's placed on you, and being like, okay, if this is who you're bringing in my path, there's a reason. And it scares the crap out of me, but I'm supposed to go with it. And it's so funny because it's literally been, as I get closer to launching, it's been this torment with me, because even though I'm a strong personality and a very vocal person, I am very, my whole life, just because of differences in my, all of the things that I experienced growing up, I've always been, like so many, too much or not enough. And I've always let other people's opinions or Satan just really attack me with not being good enough. And it's been because of things that I've gone through and you know, things that I've survived, because it does have a way of breaking you down to an extent, but God builds you back up. And so anyways, I was just like battling this whole thing and really struggling and going back and forth of, no, like you didn't mean this, right? Like you didn't seriously mean this. And getting into the spot of, I must be arrogant to think that I have anything of value that I can say in a podcast, right? Like who does that? Like who thinks so highly of themselves, Connie? And I was literally a couple weeks ago putting towels into the dryer when all of a sudden God reminded me, I've had this call on you forever.
I love that it was in like a little everyday moment.
Yeah. And it's even in the simple, like the most recent, or the farthest back, actually, I should say, that I can remember of knowing that I know, oh my gosh, even before that, now that I'm thinking about it. But anyways, we're talking clear into 1994, and actually sooner than that, where I knew, because so many people kept saying to me with how I spoke and what I had gone through, that they like to listen to me speak. You should speak.
Mm-hmm. But didn't I tell you that too? I was like,
yes. And so then anyways, the last 4 days has literally been torture. And I remember texting you yesterday, being like, and I made the mistake of watching your guys' goodbye video yesterday morning after my worship time. And I was like, even though I'm so excited for you guys, what's next? But because I was going through my own battle of really, God, like, and just this back and forth, and really fighting what I know that he's calling me to do, but because we do have to walk in faith and be so vulnerable. And I thought it was super rad because in the midst of when we just say, God, like, I want to do what you've placed on my life. I really do, but this is scary. And am I going in the right direction? And help me, like, just help me. I am one of those every morning, especially with the coronavirus, I do not get on social media really anymore. Every day at 11:40, our church does daily devotionals. I have an alarm in my phone set for that. Our small group, that we have a private page, I get on for that. And for the most part, I think I've posted twice during this whole lockdown. That's essentially 2 months almost, next week or the end of this week. And I've just stayed off of it. I have to stay off of it. And what I didn't know was how much time I was losing in the morning to social media while drinking coffee.
Yes.
I had no clue. I thought it was literally about 15 minutes a day.
And then your thing was like, your screen time went up.
Yes. Well, and now realizing with staying off of social media, how much more time I have in real. I used to do the first 15 is what I did. So 5 minutes in word, 5 minutes worship, 5 minutes in prayer, and then I'd go about my day. And I thought I was good. And, I'm not criticizing that at all. Luckily, in this situation, I've probably been able to allow myself almost 2 hours every day and not even realize that I'm in that. I don't have little kids. I have golden retrievers. So that I got to say also, like, I'm not like normal people who have kids. Mom, I'm hungry. So I have that afforded to me. But needless to say, the last 4 days have been struggles. Yesterday kicked my tail bad. And by evening, I had to be at a place. It was before evening, probably around 1:30. I was finally at a place of, fine, I surrender. Like, I'm done questioning you. I'm not gonna, fine. Like, I don't know what you're setting me up for, but I'm gonna do it. And it's terrifying. And what I think is so rad is he comes quickly. He always comes quickly. And so this morning, I remember texting you because I was so excited. And I was in one of the scriptures that I was reading, which was in Romans. He says, it says in Romans, I think it's 10, 11 through 15. As the scripture tells us, anyone who trusts in him will never be disgraced, which I was like, Jew and Gentile are the same in this respect. They have the same Lord who gives generously to all who call on him. And it makes me think of your stories of just being in that place of, come, like, I need you. And for everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. But how can they call on him to save them unless they believe in him? And how can they believe in him if they have never heard about him? And how can they hear about him unless someone tells them?
Wow.
How will anyone go and tell them without being sent? That is why the scripture says, how beautiful are the feet of the messengers who bring good news. And I was like, undone.
Yeah.
And okay. And it's just that affirmation of, even when it hurts or it's scary or it makes sense, because I do not have great scriptural knowledge. Like, I'm not a memorize of all the verses. I don't have the best temperament or attitude. I definitely have some words that still need to be removed from my vernacular. I am like, really? You're going to use me? But again, where we're kindred spirits in that, of the whole thing of, it might not make sense. It might not completely fit right now or whatever, but we're going to go because I believe this is where you're calling. And then he uses you to speak to so many. I mean, you spoke to me even. Who knew? We were just live right down the road too, which is so crazy. But how far that spreads in the just being obedient.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's like, well, like little old me, or we just downplay the importance and just how big of an impact we can make in our daily lives. And just by being vulnerable and being transparent and just being real and sharing our struggles, sharing our wins, sharing just everything, and just how God has worked through all of it and just how we've met. It's just the most incredible story in the world.
It totally is. And she would laugh and cry, probably, knowing, thinking of her, if she understood the impact of all of it.
But when she watches this, she doesn't cry much, but when she watches this, she's gonna cry.
Yeah, Michael's probably more like the softie than she is on some things, unless it's about her kids. But I just think it's so crazy and so funny, but at the same time, so practical in the sense of, he doesn't make you wait long.
Right.
That being said, sometimes he definitely does. It depends on the thing. I think that he doesn't make you wait long on the peace of knowing that you're in his will.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Sometimes for fruition of something to come to pass. Yes, we can wait. We can wait a very long time. I'm trying to think. I had one more question for you and it just left my head.
Well, talking about waiting, I was actually, just like you said, just yes, this is like what I need to be doing. When I was trying to prepare, I'm like, what should I say or what should I talk about? Well, on Instagram the other day, I came across this post, and I think it was on maybe the Dare to Be event by Natalie Grant,
Oh, I love
something like
her.
but it said on there, and it said, because we were just talking about waiting, and it said, in a fast-paced world, who actually enjoys waiting? Waiting is hard. We don't like it. Oftentimes with God, we find ourselves in a waiting season, waiting for him to move, waiting for him for an answer, waiting for doors to open. Many times in these seasons of waiting, rather than trusting, we begin questioning who he is. We start doubting him, become angry, and begin doing things on our own strength. Yet, in Psalm 62, 5 through 8, David writes, God, the one and only, I'll wait as he says. Everything I hope for comes from him. So why not? He's solid. He's the solid rock under my feet, breathing room for my soul, an impregnable castle. I'm set for life. My help and glory are in God, granite, strength, and safe harbor God. So trust him absolutely, people. Lay your lives on the line for him. God is a safe place to be. And then she said, David understood that no matter how long the wait, the best option for him was to wait for God to move. See, David trusted that no matter how long the wait, God would be faithful to come through. In your waiting season, allow your trust to be fixed on who your God is. He is faithful. God will always come through. And then one of my most favorite quotes in the entire world that I just found. It says, bold faith stands on the shoulders of quiet trust.
Oh,
isn't that good?
yeah.
Yeah. And then she said, be bold today in your faith, knowing God can be trusted. So I just thought that was so good.
Yeah, I like that one. It's funny. I've had to learn it, and really, I have to try to put it into practice a lot. But it actually started because of everything that happened with Reed, where I was able to look at this. Because a lot of us believe that when we go before God and we put something before him, whether it's, especially when it's something of our heart, where we really want to, I don't know, move, or a new job, or a spouse or kids or whatever. And if we don't get an answer right away, then we're like, he's not listening, or he's not doing. And one of the things that I learned, and I'm so grateful for it, and I hope that I can remember and stay in it, but the place of the in-between, which is the part where we go before him and we pray, and the part where he answers. But that in-between is actually very important. And there's a lot that happens.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can take a long, long time. Part of it is because sometimes we drag it out because we're just not learning something quick enough, and we pull it back and we try to meddle in it. And sometimes it's because that's part of the plan. And when we wait in that in-between, what he's building and teaching and getting us through on the other side of it, when it finally comes into fruition, and however that is so much greater than what we could have even planned for anyways. And I've had to learn about the in-between world with what Reed went through, because even though he recovered, he had nerve damage done to his arm. And so even his arm, like, they believed that he would eventually get some use of it back, but it was really just one of those, we don't know. And he had to completely retrain himself. And I just knew, because of the situation that happened within 2 days, and it was really because God placed a double rainbow outside of his hospital room window, and it was game on from there. I was never going to falter or change my opinion, but I knew that God was going to do a complete healing and restoration. And one of the things I kept saying is, we don't move faster than God. I would say that to Reed when he was taken out of a coma and extubated, because once he realized what was happening and where he was, he wanted out of the hospital, but he wasn't ready. And so we would pray, that God would finish doing what he was doing and healing in him and all that other stuff, and to hurry. And at the same time, follow it back with, but we don't move faster than God. So if God keeps you here longer, then we're okay with that. We're okay with that. And so in the in-between, this is where we're at. So in between the resurrection, so to speak, for lack of a better word, and complete and full use of all of it, this is what we do. So we trust God, and we just continue. Old orders are standing orders. So you're going to work it out, and you're going to do this. And I think people need to understand that as well, is that faith, yes, is an instant in the here and now. And it's also a waiting. And that helps develop faith as well, though. But it's not an instantaneous, like, okay, God, I prayed today, you didn't give me the job tomorrow, and so faith is off the table. Like, it can't work that way. And understanding in between, you got to pay attention to what's happening in the in between, because God is still doing and speaking and moving in big ways. So the in between really matters as well. It's not just the end result that matters, it's the in between. And that comes into play with where we're at in life right now with the coronavirus.
Yes.
All of us want to hurry up, get it over with, let us back to normal. And at the same time going, God, use this time. Use this time. And I'm going to wait. I'll wait on you. And, and that's faith, knowing he's got it, but he's going to take what time he needs to do what he needs to do. And then it will come into fruition. And I miss church. So when you're ready, I'm ready.
Yes, I know. Me too.
Online is hard. It's hard. It's been an adjustment, but soon we're getting closer.
Yes, so close. I don't know when we're gonna open up here, but probably not till June though.
But. Yeah, I'm not in a hurry to jump out there and stuff. I mean, I do miss church, but like the physical corporate worship and all that stuff. But take your time, God. If you gotta work it out a little bit longer, then work it out. And I've told them, get my kids, do what you gotta do to them, get their attention, because only one of them is really walking, and the other two are kind of like, So, well, so before I let you go, is there anything that you just feel like you are led to say or want to say on this topic because it's such a big deal? Or do you feel like, no, I think we're pretty good?
I just want to say that I can't think of the quote, but it's something like where, God threw Daniel in the lion's den, and I think you know what quote I'm talking about. But basically that he uses broken people. He uses the most unexpected people who, I was before I got just, comfortable in my own skin, so to speak. I was a super big introvert. So like something like this I would have been like, nope.
YouTube channel.
And then the YouTube channel, and then just constantly being vulnerable. But just take it day by day and trust the process. That's probably my biggest advice. Trust the process, and God will use you in the most unexpected, beautiful, amazing way that you could you would never be able to just understand or do it on your own. And it'll just surprise you every single morning when you wake up.
Right. I think also to tag on to that, it's also one of those, no matter how great our faith is, I know that you and I both test very high on faith actually, but there's still stuff we have to learn.
Yes.
And people need to understand that as well. Like, no matter, none of us have this mastered, and we're all still very, very human. And it's the whole thing of, luckily, because we have great faith, maybe in the easier situation or in a different situation, when we're faced with something new, we have the reflection of that to be like, okay, God, you didn't let me down there. And so when it sucks, like right now in whatever, I'm just going to trust and believe. And I know you're a prayer person where you just have to dive in and pray. I am one of those because my brain won't stop spinning. I have to just get worship music on, and I have to just continually listen and just let it quiet me and calm me, and then start speaking to me before I can be like, okay, big girl panties up, let's go. And that's how I work. My husband is a studious person. He's intellectual. And so he's one of those, yes, worship is definitely for him and prayer is definitely for him, but he's like, get me in the word and what is this telling me? And he'll like open his Bible app and he's all over the place in all these different directions. And I'm like, what are you doing?
I know. I don't work like that. That's amazing.
No, I'm not like that at all. But I think for people that are like wanting to develop greater faith or that are just learning about faith, they need to understand none of us have it all together. We all have issues. I have strong faith and great faith, and even still had my tail kicked the last 4 days. you know, it happens to the best of us. So you're in good company. And it's just one of those, give it to him, just give it to him and just see where it goes.
And just see what he does with it.
See what he does with it. Well, I love you. And I thank you for coming on and talking with me.
It was so much fun.
I know. I hope it wasn't like too rigid.
No, it was perfect. It was so fun.
You're going to be part of the newbies on my stuff once it goes live. So, I mean, there are kinks to work out. And once I get better, I'm going to pull you on again.
No, you are amazing.
Well, thank you for that. But I'm going to have links below or in this, however it goes out on all the different platforms also for your guys' channel. And because I know that people like greater than what they're getting to know you right now and see of you just would fall in love with you guys and your family and the kids and stuff as well. So I want people to be able to learn more about you that way. And I'm just so glad that I found you, you found me, that God brought us to each other. And it's so funny because in your other life of your small business owner stuff, you and I actually need to have a conversation because of a video I watched the other day. But anyway, you know, you've got that as well, where it's like that kind of stuff talks to people and inspires people and things like that, which people know from your video. But really quick, I'll just let you say, I know that you don't want to dive too far into it, but just really quick what it is that you do. And
so actually, this was also a total God thing, because if you would have known me, like, I don't know, even like a year ago, I didn't quite understand nor like network marketing or anything like that. I just thought, you know, I think it gets a bad rap. And but going along with just why we kind of went RVing, I was going through postpartum depression and just struggling. I didn't have it with my first two, so I was just kind of like, what in the world is happening? And so I just really started researching, because this was just not a place I wanted to be. It was very dark. That was just a very brief way to put it, but I just couldn't find joy in anything. I'm like, I have this brand new baby and I should be happy, and I'm not. I'm just sad all the time. And so I started researching, and I just came across like gut health and how very important it is in so many aspects of life. And so I started working for a health and wellness company called Plexus, and God has just continued to use that and show me just how you can use network marketing in a positive way, show people it's different, and bring community and bring Jesus and so many things all together in just the most incredible way. Like, I just couldn't even imagine that this would be my life a year ago. So before that, I did have a photography business, and I loved it. I loved it so much. But I just, like you said, I was not finding joy in it, and I wasn't feeling called to that anymore. And so, like, I feel like when you're so passionate about something, it helps you share it like so much more authentically. So I've been doing that for almost a year now. I saw
you just had your 1 year anniversary.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's so funny though, in another way again, of where it's like, you know, you have the negative of, like, I don't know, I don't think so, and network marketing and blah, 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 and gimmick and whatever. Mm-hmm. And that whole thing of where you're like, okay, I'm just going to trust it. And it was right before you guys end up going out on the road. And so then it ends up being a way for you to supplement or have income while you're traveling with the family, all because you said yes. And so again, I think that's just so much more of the whole thing of what God really wants from us, and the ability to just be like, I don't know, but I'm going to say yes.
Yeah. And that's how I met Lane. Yeah. And then we ended up camping with their family and another family for like, I don't know, almost a month, maybe. It was over 2 weeks, I know. And it's just a beautiful community of people. And I'm thankful, and just to be feeling better and being healthy, and just now seeing like my friends who are they were silently struggling, just like a lot of us are. And just seeing the change has been amazing, because I'm an Enneagram 9 So I love to love people, and I love calm and peace, and just want everyone to be happy and feeling good. So it's like right up my alley. So.
And I'm a total 8, like Joe.
An 8.
Yeah, so well, I love you, and I'm so glad you did this.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Like I said, it was so much fun, and I just love you, and I'm just so, so grateful that like all of this happened in our paths.
I can't wait to see what's coming next.
Me too.
Okay, hold on.